I just want to start by saying that this was my very misguided idea. I regret it immensely and feel terrible for bringing my friends into it. In 2010, when I was 15, I became interested in urban exploration photography. I absolutely loved seeing beautiful, eerie photos of abandoned shopping centers and hearing about all the awesome vintage stuff people would find at these places. I was originally thinking of going to famous local, urban exploration sites, like a very well-known abandoned mental asylum called Larundel Mental Asylum. There are many creepy and weird pictures of this place online and many stories of paranormal stuff happening there. About a week before my best friend, A, her boyfriend, G, and I were going to go, I got talking to an acquaintance, S, at a party who warned me off. She told me about how she and her cousins went there a while back. They were all very into spiritual and supernatural stuff, I believe. Nobody else was there that night except them, and apparently they got horrible vibes as soon as they walked in. While they were exploring upstairs, one of her cousins felt an overwhelming force pulling him towards a room, and just before he opened the door, he fell through the floor and slashed one of his wrists so badly he nearly bled out. She said she would never go back or to anywhere like that again, but if I ever found a cool house to let her know. So I was like, hell no, not going. I mostly gave up on the idea and just didn't think about it for ages until I found the house. So, I was going for a bike ride one day a few months after this and decided to take a different route to my normal one and ended up running through this weird little pathway at the bottom of a dead-end street and kept riding until I ended up at this park. I had never been there before and was very, disorientated at this point. Like I was basically lost in my own suburb more or less. Anyway, I ride through this park to try and find a water fountain and end up going down this long path which led to nothing except this really high stone wall covered in dead vines. The stonework on the wall was a really unique design and it just seemed really odd and out of place, so I felt this urge to see over it. I stood on my bike and even then was only just able to look over this wall and I'm not sure. What I saw was a very, very weird mansion. The garden was absolutely overgrown, a sea of green broken only by Greek marble statues poking out, and the house was yellow? And the bottom floor windows were all broken, but I could see that black and white checker flooring and more statues inside. The windows on the top floor were boarded up except for one that had curtains. There was also a fountain in the garden that was all cracked too. It was the oddest and most out-of-place house I'd ever seen, and my instant urge was to photograph it, but I didn't have a camera or my phone. So I rode back through the park and picked a house number to remember and managed to make my way home even though I got really, really lost. I instantly messaged A and G and S, the girl I met at the party. I told them I found this incredible abandoned house and we need to check it out ASAP. My best friend immediately got super excited because the plan was we were going to start a blog and she would write about places we explored. I would take the photos, and her boyfriend was excited because he is super into horror movies and wanted to film stuff. S was a bit reluctant. She said the statue sounded kind of creepy but eventually decided she would come. So we made a plan to go on Saturday night because G wants to film at night and we're all scared of being seen by people in the park, so it seems logical. We'd meet at A's house and G would borrow his dad's trailer to bring a ladder so we could get over the wall. So Saturday night rolls around. At this point, I was nervous because it hit me we were breaking and trespassing, and if we got caught my parents would flip out and never let me go out again ever. But I ended up at A's. Both A and G arrived. We ordered a pizza and drank some beer and hung out for about an hour because we decided to leave the house at midnight. It was weird because it should have been awkward. A and S were only sort of friends. S and I barely knew each other, and S and G had never met. Plus G was older and hanging out with a bunch of 15-year-old girls, and yet we were all just so mutually excited, nervous that it was really cool. I remember distinctly thinking how the four of us were going to be best friends and do this all the time and how cool the blog would be, and already planning where to go next. So we left at 12 and made it smoothly to the house number I'd remembered, and G parked the ute, and then this is where we encountered the first problem because I led us down the wrong street, and it took about half an hour to find the park, and G was carrying this heavy ladder and getting really pissed off. So we finally find the park, and I just remember feeling a bit uneasy. It was very, very dark. No lights in the park or streetlights were on, and it was really sort of still and quiet. So we start walking. I was leading the way and not even that sure that I was going the right way. The park had a really unpleasant vibe at night. It was odd in the day, but something just felt really isolated at night. So we find the path and walk down, and sure enough, we reach the wall. We were ages away from the car. I had assumed it was quick, but I'd been cycling the last time and not carrying a ladder and a camera. So once we reach the wall, G starts getting excited. A is nervous but pumped, so am I. S is uncomfortable. She goes, I have a bad feeling about this the minute we reach the wall. G climbed up and looked over and shined his torch and freaked out, saying, Jesus, those statues are creepy. He sits on the wall, and A goes up, then me, then S. We're all sitting on the wall looking down at the sea of weeds and statues. S looked at me and shook her head. I don't want to do this, she said, and I said, you can wait here. She was too scared to wait, so we pulled the ladder up and climbed down it. As soon as we set foot in this garden, I was just filled with dread. I think we all were. The statues were very creepy and human-like. Up close, their faces were just wrong-looking, like features were weird sizes, and they looked really unsettling, like their arms were twisted weirdly. We were completely silent. G is filming and I'm taking pictures. We reach the back door and it's unlocked. A goes, that's weird, and we all nod. Once we step inside, we're in this huge, empty room filled with objects, clearly statues, covered in sheets. G pulls a sheet off one and we all scream. It's a Greek statue with a horrible, human-like face painted on, grimacing. Let's get the hell out of here, A says. We realize S has stopped in the doorway. I have never felt such bad omens. We need to leave, she said. I walked over to her, but G was like, no, this is creepy, but it's probably some local kids, blah blah blah, it's a safe suburb, also my film, etc., and says he's staying. I was too scared to walk back through the garden without him, so we stayed. S is silently crying at this point. I felt like my heart was going to explode. So we keep walking through the house. I'm shaking too much to take pictures. We pass empty room after empty room, all filled with sheet-covered statues. We reach the bottom of a marble staircase. S is shaking, A is squeezing my hand so hard it hurts, and G even seems hesitant, but we start walking up. Once we get to the top, it's clear something is very, very wrong with this house. There are no doors except one at the end of a hallway, but every room is filled with odd, wrong-looking furniture. Chairs painted red in a pile in one room, tables that are too high, painted odd colors. Something was really off. We open a cupboard in one room and scream at a horrific life-sized mural of some sort of bizarre person with inhumanly long teeth and hands. At this point, even G was freaking out. He was like, let's just check the last room and then get the freaking hell out. So we all walked slowly towards the door. Inside was a nursery. A black crib, old wooden toys? I can't recall what they were, but maybe puppets. And strange paintings of clowns, I think, or maybe more akin to the mural of that person or thing on the walls. We didn't even step inside. G said, let's go right now, this place isn't safe, and we head downstairs. As soon as we get down, we all freeze because some of the statues have been moved up against one wall. We drop our stuff and run to the door. G kicks it open and we run through this horrible garden to the wall. I remember when I was nearly at the wall, S just screams, and we all turn to see a light is now on in the nursery room. We literally scale this wall, jumping down and leaving the ladder. I sprain my ankle but don't look back as we all run through the park. We got in the car and we're all crying and covered in cuts and scratches, and my ankle is swelling already. G gets to S's house to drop her off and just says, we're never doing that again. And then nobody says anything. He dropped me off next, then they left. I had to sneak in through the back door so my parents didn't see me and freak out. S deleted us all off Facebook that night and I never saw her again. I had horrible nightmares for a month afterward and my ankle has never been the same. I didn't tell anybody about what, and neither did A. We're still best friends, but we never talk about it. Her and G broke up not long after the event. Honestly, I feel like we were in the presence of someone or something very, very evil. My life is boring. I'm a student at a boring university in a boring town. In my free time, I usually sit in my tiny student room with my computer, having to listen to my roommate and her boring boyfriend's loud conversations. For a long while, I have felt that my life is too routine. I do the same boring shit every single day. I felt a need for more excitement in my life. Since I was 15, I have always been interested in places that most people do not really know of. Places that have stood abandoned for many years. Places that, if you enter them, you stand the risk of getting arrested. Reading about these places on Reddit always excited me. I wanted to go to them. I wanted the adrenaline and fear that came with them. Watching other people on YouTube exploring old hotels, warehouses, malls, or even bowling alleys made me jealous. I watched people getting chased by dogs or cops, people finding creepy items or encountering homeless addicts, and that only made me want to visit an abandoned place more. Because my life was so boring, the adrenaline was very alluring to me. And so I did some research. I had only been a student at my university for a couple of months. I was in a new town with new places to explore. After doing some Googling, I found out that there in fact was an abandoned place where I live, not too far from me. Of course, I was intrigued. I needed to spice up my life, and unlike other people my age, I did not want to do that by partying or hooking up. I wanted to spice my life up by adding some danger to it. From what I read, the place did not seem that special. It was not an entire hotel or some mall, it was only an old underground tunnel that used to be a passage for car traffic. It felt like the perfect place for a beginner to explore. It had not been in use for over 20 years, and it seemed that not that many urban explorers had been there before me. I have some friends, but none of them would ever be interested in putting themselves in danger just to seek some thrill, understandable but boring. My friends are the kind of people who like to sit in a circle while drinking and playing games. That can be fun, of course, but it is not very exciting. So I went alone. Stupid decision, I know. I am a young and short female who decided to go to an abandoned place after dark on my own. I was naive and thought that nothing could ever happen to me, but something did. And after my experience, you best believe that I will not explore alone or at all ever again. It was a Saturday night when I decided to take my bike and go to the tunnel. With me, I brought a flashlight, an army knife, pepper spray, and my camera. At least I brought some protection, right? But that did not help me from getting traumatized, maybe for life. It had already gotten dark out, and before leaving I checked the time on my computer monitor. It was 22:04, so not that late. This was during autumn though, so the natural light had run out for the day. I left my room and locked the door after me. My roommate is a nice girl, but I don't fully trust her yet, hence locking it. When I left, she had the door to her room open as always and therefore saw me leaving. I did not tell her where I was going, only that I was taking a walk. Once I got out of my apartment building, I unlocked my bike and started my journey towards the tunnel. I had found the coordinates online and was finding my way to them with the help of Google Maps on my phone. To get there, I had to bike through a wooded area. The path was not lit up. The only reason that I could see anything was because of my bike light. It was scary, but I enjoyed the fear. At least I was feeling something. I thought it was great. I already felt more alive, and I had not even reached my destination yet. Suddenly, my GPS said to turn left into the woods. It would have been impossible to take my bike because there was no path and the terrain did not seem friendly. Therefore, I left my bike on the path and locked it. I turned my bike light off and suddenly, I was standing in complete darkness. The only sound was the wind blowing the leaves and some ruffling of trees from a deer or something. I took a deep breath and turned on the flashlight that I had brought with me. It was a cheap flashlight, and the light it emitted was far from satisfactory. I could really only see a couple of meters in front of me. Nothing scary had really happened yet, but I still felt uneasy. I started to regret coming there but thought that I might as well get to the tunnel. Quickly, I started to make my way through the forest. I felt scared and sort of observed. In reality, I knew that no one was out there. It was 10:30 at night in the middle of the forest on a Saturday. No one was crazy enough to take a stroll at this time except for me, I guess. Eventually, I reached the tunnel. If I wasn't scared before, I definitely was now. The inside of the tunnel was dark and seemed to go on forever. The outside was covered with demonic symbols and, of course, phallic objects spray-painted on the wall. Above the tunnel, someone had written "Stay out or die" in red paint. None of this made me want to leave though. I just figured that some bored teenagers from the town had painted it all. To be fair, there was not a lot to do around here. With that, I entered the tunnel. The ground in there was slightly moist, and I could hear dripping sounds around me. Stupidly enough, I was wearing sneakers and the dirty liquid from the ground made them soaked right away. I still kept going. I would just clean the shoes later. The graffiti from outside the tunnel continued on the tunnel walls with more cryptic symbols and warnings. I kept going, knowing that this was something that was common in abandoned places. The tunnel was not that interesting, to be honest. Sure, it was thrilling being there at night, but there were not a lot of things to discover. A pit started to form in my stomach. I did not really know why. Nothing had happened to make me scared, but something just did not feel right. I shined my light on one of the tunnel walls and immediately jumped back and, I am embarrassed to say, let out a high-pitched scream, which echoed through the tunnel. I thought I had seen a ghost or something, but after looking at the wall I could see that it was just a demonic-looking face painted on there. I chuckled a little to myself. How could something so stupid have scared me like that? I must have really been on edge. My momentary relief was quickly gone when I shined my flashlight on the ground in front of the face. There, on the ground, I could see some dirty blankets and a pillow. At the time I couldn't understand why it was there, but it definitely freaked me out a bit. Was someone living in this tunnel? I started to feel very uneasy again and wanted to leave. I took a photo of the face and the bed, just to document that I had been there, and started to walk towards the exit. That is when I heard footsteps coming into the tunnel. That was scary enough, but what made it worse was that they came from the direction I had come from, the direction which was my way out. I froze for a second, not knowing what to do. Eventually, before the person could get any closer, I snapped out of my haze and started running the other way, further into the tunnel. This seemed like my best option at the time, and knowing what I know now, I can confirm that it was. When I started running, so did the other person. I could hear the footsteps speeding up behind me. While running, I started to take my army knife out of my pocket. I know that running with a knife in itself is dangerous, but at least I could protect myself if the person caught up to me. The tunnel was not as long as I thought, and eventually, I reached its other end. In my panicked state, I had not noticed that the footsteps behind me had prevailed. But once I had left the tunnel, I noticed it. Still, I kept running. At that moment, I thought that I had to get back to my bike, so I started going through the forest, running beside the hill which the tunnel went through. During my run, at various moments, I could swear that I heard branches breaking around me. It might have been paranoia though, because it would not have been possible for the person to catch up to me at this point. When I found the path where my bike stood again, I felt a small sense of relief. Once I reached the bike, I quickly unlocked it and raced home. Not until I reached my apartment building did I start to calm down slightly. That is when I noticed a note in my bicycle basket. I put my bike away and ran into my dorm room with the note in hand. Once I had locked the door behind me, I sat down. I was still in a state of shock at this point. Had someone really just chased me? Why did I put myself in such danger? Slowly, I opened up the note. The contents of it was short, but terrifying. Hello, pretty girl. I have not met you yet, but I am excited to do so. The fact that this was left in my bicycle basket means that this person must have been somewhere in the forest, observing me while I left my bike. If not, how did they know that I was a girl? The note was not exactly threatening, but with context it was definitely jarring. This person had been by themselves in the forest at night, observing me and then following me. Thank God I noticed their footsteps in time, otherwise I might not have been writing this right now. I still don't know who chased me that night, and I will not be going back to find out. I assume that the person who chased me is the same person who lives in the tunnel. Just think about what kind of state you must be in to find shelter in such a place. Either this person was on drugs or in a very bad mental state, probably both. After this experience, I am definitely not going anywhere by myself at night. And to the person who might be watching this, do not go to abandoned places alone. No matter how thrilling or enticing it might seem, it is not worth the risks. It was 12 a.m. when the phone started ringing. Hey, I asked, tired, while changing for bed. Hello, Jethro, remember me? Came a soothing voice from the other end. Of course I remembered him. He was the asshole I owed a favor for saving my life back at that stone formation. How could I forget you? You're the one I owe a favor to. I replied, a little annoyed. Remember that this asshole saved your life. And what's with the attitude? I thought we were friends. Azaf chuckled. Yeah, whatever, so you called to wish me a Merry Christmas? Well, not exactly. I need that favor you owe me. I sighed before I asked, "What do you need and when?" "Well, I need it done by the end of this week," Asaf continued cheerfully. "Guessing this won't be easy since you are asking me," I told him, my mind already saying goodbye to today's sleep and rest of the week's sleep as well. "You got this wrong, pal. If it was hard, I'd go handle it myself." His laughter mocking me through the phone. "Yeah, sure. So what's it about?" I asked, not breaking my tone. Straight to the point as always. "Don't you know how to have fun?" Asaf sounded a little annoyed now. "Well, I was planning on going skiing tomorrow, but I guess that is out the window now, isn't it?" I said angrily. "Don't give me that attitude. Anyway, you need to go investigate an abandoned house that should be demolished by now." "An abandoned house? Why is an abandoned house such a necessity during Christmas?" "Well, it wasn't until yesterday. Yesterday, I got about a dozen calls from people living in that town, saying that from this house came screams both human, from children, men and women, and not so human. The human ones sounded like someone was getting tortured for hours then killed." "Jesus Christ, are you seriously trying to get me to go in a house where screams of bloody murder come out?" "Trying to? No, you will go there, like it or not." "You owe me," said Asaf, irritated. "Asshole," I whispered more to myself than to him. "What is the name of the town?" "That's more like it." His condescending enthusiasm grated on my last nerve. "The town's name is Oakenburg, and it isn't located on any normal maps." "Why is that?" I asked curiously. "Well, I have no idea. The history of it is non-existent. I'm sure you'll find out when you get there. Merry Christmas." Asaf finished the call before I could respond. He had the audacity to wish me a Merry Christmas, that asshole. I wish he hadn't saved my life sometimes. I was left to wonder what guns I should bring with me and the ammunition. A message snapped my thoughts away with a ding. It was a GPS location in the middle of the woods. The nearest road was about 1 kilometer away, or so it looked. Below the location, Asaf had left me a message. "That road should exist and you should find it fairly easily. At one point there will be a dirt road. Looks old and non-maintained at the entrance, but once you go on it, it should be like it was made yesterday. Good luck." Of course. A mysterious road leading to a town that shouldn't exist. This can only end well. The only detail he gave me about the mission was to go to an abandoned house with people screaming and creatures screeching. What creature could it be? I thought to myself. A skinwalker? Those can imitate the crying or screaming loved ones. But they usually live in the forest. My guess would be the lady in white or a banshee. I grabbed the Soul Snatcher, the Nightmare Ender, and the revolver for good measure. The Soul Snatcher is a modified shotgun and the Nightmare Ender is a rifle with a double extended magazine that fires 10 rounds per second. I packed the special bullets with the silver ones. I knew I couldn't put myself in danger again. No more risks. I packed everything up and left the house at 3 a.m. headed for Oakenburg. I got to the town after some hours. It was 2 p.m. You do the math. The entrance of the town was constructed through a natural archway produced by the tall oaks. The trees seemed magical somehow, their natural beauty outshining even the most beautiful artwork. The town wasn't big. It had a coffee shop, some local markets, and some houses. The population was marked at the entrance on a classic, old wooden sign that read Population 100. I didn't waste any time and I went straight to the coffee shop, guessing that would be the right place to talk to the locals about the strange enigma. As I entered the coffee place, a sweet aroma of freshly made coffee headed up my nostrils, making me feel energetic. The shop combined the different coffee aromas, making a sweet yet calming fragrance. I went to the counter and sat on a tall wooden stool. "What can I get you today?" asked the cashier. She had a name tag pinned to her shirt that read Molly. She looked young, her curly brown hair going down to her shoulders. A small nose was accompanied by 2 small coffee-colored marbles. Her skin seemed like it avoided light, being as white as snow and smooth like a piece of velvet, making her rosy cheeks stand out. "An Irish coffee, please." I answered, my tone sounding tired. "Coming right up." She answered in a calm and cheerful voice. "I don't think I've seen you here before. Did you just move in?" "Well, not exactly," I said, now stirring my hot coffee. "Just business." "Business, you say? But what is there to do here?" She asked curiously. "Not that kind of business," I said. Her facial expression became more curious each second passing. I took a sip of my coffee, the brown liquid burning my tongue in the process. She chuckled at this. Well then, what are you up to? She paused, signaling she was waiting for my name. Jethro, I said. Jethro? She continued, smiling while her rosy cheeks became more red. I found myself wondering how long it had been since she talked to someone new. Well, I'm here to deal with the house problem. I continued as I drank more of my coffee. The whiskey in it was a little much, but I like my coffee strong anyway. There was a long pause before she said anything else. You mean that house? Her tone was now worried and filled with fear. Yeah, I heard it was causing you guys problems. I said, looking down at my bag. She glanced at my bag as well, then back at me. For a second I got lost in her autumn eyes, knowing that I probably wouldn't get the chance to gaze at them again. Well, are you the police or the FBI? She questioned me as I chuckled. I don't work for any government facility. I'm, let's say, a private type of guy. She looked at me and nodded, understanding that I was saying the truth. Do you know where it is? I continued. Yeah, after you leave the shop you take a right and you keep going. You'll know which house it is when you see it. She confirmed as I was finishing up my coffee. Thank you, I said, searching for my wallet. How much for the coffee? She gazed at me for a few seconds before she replied, Go, it's on the house. Her voice became a little flirty, and have this as a gift. She handed me a small piece of paper with a phone number on it. I took the piece of paper and smiled. I'll make sure to use the gift when I can. I said, somehow managing to hide how happy I was. I hadn't gotten a girl's phone number in years. Glad you do, she exclaimed with a sweet smile. One more thing. How did you find this town? We aren't on any maps since we like our privacy. I have my ways, I said as I headed for the door. She wanted to ask something, but before she could, I left the shop and headed in the direction that Molly had told me. Having a huge bag and looking out of town really attracts attention on the street. Everyone was looking at me like they were at the zoo seeing a monkey for the first time. As I got further down the street, people were seen less by less until I was the only one walking on the concrete sidewalk. She didn't lie when she told me I'd recognize when I'm at the right place. Most of the houses were colorfully painted with well-maintained yards lined with oak fences. Each house showed signs of life, parked cars in driveways that were sometimes littered with children's toys and chalk drawings. The house I was headed for, however, looked like something out of a horror movie. The house was made out of wood that was once solid and glorious, but now stood like an old man on his deathbed. Its bright paint had been beaten to a dark brown, like the house had waged war with the weather and time itself. The old, thin glass windows were all broken, leaving big holes in the house, circled with sturdy frames letting the cold winter air inside. It had a front porch, well, what was left of it anyway. The guardrail was missing planks from each direction. Surprisingly, the stairs held up well. When you stepped on them, creepy creaks followed your steps like a symphony. The weathered wood fell like dominoes, announcing its defeat. Vines and vegetation grew on the side of the house, starting to eat the place. The second story of the house didn't look any better with the brick roof caved in on one side. This place gave me the creepy vibes, like it didn't belong there. Yet there it stood in all its former glory. I stepped in, following the barely visible path to the porch, entering through the frame that once held a door. As I stepped in, every sound from outside stopped, giving me a chill that ran down my spine, making my hair stand up. It seemed like I stepped in a portal. I looked back and sure enough, the front yard was still there along with the fence and the road. I'm still on Earth. To the left of me was what remained of a kitchen. Drawers had been pulled out and emptied all over the floor, some broken and some still intact. Multicolored stains covered the walls, but one in particular stood out, dark red, like blood. As I went closer to it, it proved my assumption. It was dried blood, although being dried it wasn't very old, a few days at most. What happened in this place? I whispered to myself. I left the kitchen and went deeper in until to the right of me I could see a wooden door. I went to inspect it. It still had a round, metal knob that made a click sound when I turned it. I entered the unlocked mystery. It looked like a guest bedroom, the bed still there. The bed was held by a classic wood frame. The model carved in the wood was manual and beautiful, even covered in dust. The once white sheet was now a dark red. More blood. I looked to my right and there stood a broken mirror with two unlit candles next to it. When I looked to my left, I found one of the reasons why this place gave the Nope vibe, a pentagram made from more blood. The pentagram was drawn on the floor, in the middle still laid the sacrifice, a poor cat. I gagged after seeing this scene, leaving the room quickly. I am a 6-foot man that is not scared of many things nor is freaked easily, but something about innocent animals being killed or tortured makes me sick to my stomach. Who would do this to a poor kitten? After taking a moment to catch my breath, I placed the bag on the ground and readied my guns. If a demonic ritual was made there, which looked like it was, God knows what I'd come across. A few feet away was another room to the left, and after that was the end of the hallway, to the right being a staircase. I prepared myself for what may be in the left room, but no preparation could have prepared me from what I saw. As soon as I entered the room, the smell of death and decay hit me. I took the safety off my revolver before I went in fully. It was another bedroom. On the left was an old box TV, its power long gone, just making itself at home. Next to the bed was a nightstand, its drawers missing. On top of it was a photo placed in a fake gold frame. The frame showed a photo of a family with 2 kids. It looked like they were on a fishing trip since the dad was holding a big salmon by the top part and the 2 boys by the back. My guess was that the mother took the photo. Now I know that this was the parents' room. Photo aside, came the bed. On top of the bed was a teenager, tied by the legs and feet to the sturdy wood frame, making sure he wouldn't go anywhere. That wasn't the disturbing part. What engraved its roots in my mind was the state of the boy. The 15 to 16 years old boy had its shirt ripped. Some of his organs were dug out, not professionally but like an animal dug in them. Some were ripped in half, others were squished, others were dry like the blood was sucked out of them. All of them were placed around the boy, forming his body form from his body parts. His neck was slashed with a deep, perfect cut across, some of his hair pulled by force. On his face was the forever stare of fear, shock, regret, and panic. His mouth forever agape, some of his teeth missing, his tongue was cut, most likely lying somewhere in the body form. If the right room made me gag, this one made me instantly vomit on the old, blood-stained wooden floor. I vomited everything I ate yesterday along with the Irish coffee. I threw up so much I actually started getting dizzy. Every time I brought my head up I gagged, seeing even the slightest part of the boy. I put my revolver back in its holster and left the room in a hurry, making sure I slammed the door behind me. What the actual fuck happened in that room? Who could do that shit to a teenager? More and more questions arousing, less responses coming with them. I was doubting going to the second floor. If this was on the first one, the second one couldn't get better. I looked behind me again, staring outside through a window frame. It was getting dark. I didn't want to be around that place when it's dark. I didn't want to be there even though I was. I hated Azaf even more now, God, that asshole. I had to finish the job though, meaning I had to go up there. I continued through the hallway, still recovering from the last trauma. Some stairs from this rusty, old staircase were either broken in half, either missing. I had to watch my step. I climbed the staircase, hugging the wall since the guardrail was completely busted. I almost didn't notice the last missing stair, almost stepping in the hole. I didn't want to break my ankle here or now. When the second floor came to full view, I saw what I can only describe as hell. If the bottom had blood hidden behind rooms, the top had it in the hallway. Pentagrams were all over the walls, stained with blood everywhere. The floor didn't escape either. On some of the walls was scribbled "help" in dried blood. Over and over again, the writing looked like it was written by a psycho. There were 3 rooms and a closed attic door held by an old latch to the roof. The end of the hallway held a huge painting covered in blood. The painting was barely visible, but it looked like it was a picturesque field with hay balls on it. This time I didn't put the revolver off safety. I took the shotgun. I didn't take risks. Okay, you can do this, Jethro, come on, you stared death in its eyes before and lived, you can do this, I was constantly telling myself, and yes, I actually had an encounter with death, but that's a story for some other time. I knocked down the door to the left, the door hitting the floor with a loud thud. Shotgun in hand, I looked around myself, up and down, there wasn't anything waiting for me but more scribbles. The scribbles wrote, "Satan save us, he's in the attic, stay away from the attic, help, 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 help." In the attic? I asked myself loudly, then it clicked. It meant the attic that was waiting a few feet from me. In this room were 3 more teenagers, all of them mangled and tortured, some parts and organs missing from them. They were fresh, a few days old. This is from where the screams were coming from, I told myself, before leaving the room. The right room was exactly before the attic, the other one was after. I went in the right room, but it was caved in, the left wall busted, showing that the other room got the same fate. I didn't see anything in them since they were so damaged, but there looked like more blood was spilled. As I got ready to leave, I heard a loud slam. Shit, the attic, I thought to myself, making sure I had silver-coated bullets loaded. I slowly turned around, peeking from the corner. The attic was indeed opened, the black void at the top taunting me, nothing coming down from it. As I began to think that the latch finally gave in and broke, I heard a slow hissing sound. Then it pounced. A tall creature came flying down the stairs, taking with it the bodies of 2 police officers and one of a woman. It didn't notice me at first. The creature had its head turned backwards, on it stood tall 2 long, bony horns ended by sharp points, covered in fresh dripping red liquid. Its twisted neck was covered in deep black hair, just like the rest of its body. Although the hair was so dark, yellow veins transporting green liquid were visible like day. Its eyes were so far back the sockets formed mini tunnels, they were tiny red marbles eating your soul from where you stood. It didn't have a nose, at least not a visible one. The mouth was opened, a long tongue hid behind 2 rows of razor-sharp, bloody teeth. The neck had a necklace made from organs and other body parts. This thing got busy up there. The torso was big and muscular. Its hands extended almost to the ground, ending in 4 thick fingers with sharp and pointy nails. The legs had 3 fingers, like pigs have. Everything froze: blood, air, motion, time. It was me and this thing, nothing else. No sounds could be heard except for my own heart beating faster. I tried moving, but my body was glued to its spot, surrounded by that sickening smell. Dread hugged me with its own gravity, making my bones tense. I almost vomited there, but I had to be quiet. Suddenly it started sniffing the air. I knew it smelled my presence. I had to act then and there or I die. Come get some, you piece of shit, I yelled while sliding in the middle of the hallway, blasting 2 shots at it. It was effective. The creature shrieked in pain and anger. It started charging at me, but I managed to dodge its pounce, making it hit the attic staircase. It went through that thing like it was butter. This thing could kill me in 1 hit. I need to be on my game here. The shotgun still had 8 more shots in it. The creature let out an angry breath before charging again. I stood my ground and shot the thing 3 more times in its torso. It ate the bullets like a hungry weasel. This time I didn't get the time to dodge. It flew me down the stairs, flinging me so hard I hit the bottom floor wall. I let out a scream from the pain. I don't know how I didn't faint or how I didn't break anything. I was out of breath for a few seconds, gasping for air. I stood up, leaning against the wall. The thing was coming down through the stairs. It was so heavy it was breaking the stairs with its feet. You should have left, now you'll pay like the others. It came a screech from the thing. This all you got, asshole? I yelled back sarcastically. This made it angrier. It started charging again, but this time I dodged, wanting to shoot it again, but the shotgun slipped behind the demon. The creature didn't care for it. I took out my rifle and started firing at it, but somehow he was deflecting the bullets with its nails. Can you fucking die already? I clamored at it. It shrieked, pouncing the ground with its fists to show dominance. This was my window. I quickly slapped 2 more mags in my rifle, making sure both of them were full, and I shot at its head. I shot its eyes a few times, making it wail. I didn't stop. I closed my eyes with my fingers strong on the trigger. That was my only chance. If this thing got outside or charged at me again, it's a lost cause. I don't know how much time passed before I noticed that the gun only shot sounds: click, 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 signaling it was empty. I was alive, pretty fucked up, but breathing. I slowly opened my eyes, wishing it was over. It was. Right below my feet stood the creature, bullet holes covering its body. I ran to grab my shotgun. It still had 3 shots in it. I emptied them in the thing's head. Who is dead now, you bitch? I squealed at the creature in victory. I took the shotgun and the rifle, turning around to leave. I checked my watch, 3 a.m. What an ironic time, I chuckled. It was only when I made it to the sidewalk the pain hit me. Every bone in my body hurted. My hands were sore, my shoulders burning along with my back. As I looked down, I noticed a huge cut going across both my legs symmetrically. The demon must have pounced 1 more time, but only managed to scratch me before going down. I waddled my way back into the town, groaning in pain. Everyone in the town heard what went down. All of the lights inside houses shined bright, illuminating my path. On their front lawns and doorsteps stood everyone, kids, men, women, families, even Molly. All of them gazed at me, their eyes asking the one same question, is it done? To this I continued walking while nodding. After I nodded, everyone started cheering and congratulating me while clapping like I was some sort of hero. I continued my walk through the town until I reached my car that was still parked in the front of the coffee shop. I slowly took the keys from my pocket, groaning in pain, and unlocked the car. Before I could get in, a shout came from behind, making me jump. "Hey Jethro, wait." I recognized the voice, it was Molly. I turned around. "What's up?" I asked, trying to make my best smile given the pain I was in. "What was in that house?" She asked, still as curious as when we first met. I looked at her for a second, contemplating if I should tell her. I finally said, "You wouldn't sleep anymore if I told you." To this she looked down, thinking for a second. Before she could muster anything, I spoke again. "Do you know of any reports for missing people?" Her face brightened with hope. "Yes, I do," she said, excitedly. "My son, who is 16, went missing after him and some friends went to that house to explore it. Seeing that he didn't come out, some locals from here went there too. They didn't return either. Then our only police officers, who were volunteers chosen by us, went and never returned either. After that, nobody had the courage to go there, so we stopped going and started praying. Have you found them?" After she finished this, I threw up in my mouth again, remembering her son tied to the bed, his friends upstairs, and the bodies of the other people around that thing's body. To this she began to look worried by what I was going to say. I looked her in the eyes before I said, "They're dead, all of them, and I wouldn't go near that house or in it if I'd want a good night's sleep." Tears began forming in her eyes as the morbid reality settled in with her, but alas, she got the words, "I understand, thank you for what you did back there." I nodded my head, saying something unbelievable even for myself. "Wanna come with me? Out of this town, a fresh start, I have enough money for both of us and I'm planning to take a vacation starting tomorrow and I'd love your company." Her face formed a smile through the tears before answering, "Yeah, a fresh start sounds good." She didn't sound excited, but I don't blame her given the situation. "If you can wait for me to pack everything up before we go, I'll come." "Sure, can I come with you so I keep you company?" "Yeah, I'd like that." As I was walking with her, a few locals came to us, asking me if I had time. I glanced at Molly, telling her to pack up while I talked to the people. She agreed. "What was in that house?" asked a man, looking like he was in his 30-foot, while the others waited impatiently for my answer. I looked around, making sure it's only us talking, and I responded, "Demon, mean fucker, worst one I dealt with so far in my career." "A demon?" asked another man. "Those things don't exist, do they?" he asked, doubtful. "If they didn't, I wouldn't have told you that one of them almost killed me back there, look," I said, pointing to my legs. They stared at them as well, noticed the cuts before accepting that in fact, demons are real. "Well, if that's the case, who summoned the damn thing?" asked the men, all of them in the same tone at the same time. "I dunno, my guess? One of you, but I'm not staying to find out." The men wanted to ask so many more questions, but I got back in my car. Molly came out shortly after and we left. And that's the end of it. We went back to my place and are currently dating while we are in Paris. Thought this city fitted us since it's romantic. After this, she told me she wants to train so she can help me further along the road. She wants revenge for her son. I called Azaf, letting him know the job and his favor were done. He was pleased and transferred a surprising $1,000 in my bank account. He told me that he might want to work with me in the future, given how I handled this case. Even though I hate him, we'd make a good team, and if I can get my future girlfriend on board with us, we'd be unstoppable, so I agreed regardless.